Hello and welcome to the Festival of Debate live stream. My name is Sara Hill. I'm from Theatre Deli and I'll be your host for tonight's show. The Festival of Debate Online is coordinated by the not-for-profit social enterprise Open Independence and is a platform co-created by communities to discuss the key social, political and economic issues of the day. All of our events are free, but if you would like to donate to support the work we've been doing, it would be greatly appreciated. As we are about to discuss, this is an incredibly difficult time for the arts and culture industry. You can donate to us via a PayPal link, which should be viewable on the description for both the YouTube and Facebook videos, or on the Festival of Debate website. Now, the arts and culture industries have been some of the worst affected by the COVID-19 crisis. Music venues and theatres were amongst the first places to close and will be amongst the last to fully open again. Artists have had, in some cases, a year's worth of work and shows cancelled, and the industry is one with a disproportionately high number of self-employed freelancers. Combine this with an uncertainty around audience confidence and often unclear advice on how and when to open again. I, for one, am still trying to work my head around being permitted to reopen Theatre Deli, but not put on any live events, i.e. actual theatre. It's not hard to see why a number of organisations have already announced that they won't be reopening post-lockdown, and they've already announced redundancies. Caroline Lucas only this afternoon called for a support package similar to those our European neighbours have produced, which is industry-specific and comes before venues and arts institutions get to a cliff edge. So in this show tonight, we're going to be looking at how can the sector weather this crisis and how is the arts and culture industry responding to this crisis. We have some fantastic guests for you tonight, so we're going to dive straight in and I'm going to bring in Sharna. And as we were just saying about news of how things can reopen, with the news just 2 days ago that galleries can now reopen, I imagine things at Slight Gallery are looking quite different for you now. So can you just talk us through like what's happened for you in the lockdown and how it is looking ahead?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Sharna. I'm the artistic director at Slight Gallery down on Brown Street. And we physically closed our spaces on March 17th. And it's been an incredibly interesting and insightful period for us. And I say us, but also the other cultural institutions in Sheffield and across, the nation and the world. So while we've been closed, we, because we're a gallery that focuses on new media, moving image and performance, we're quite agile with digital technologies and we have digital expertise within our team. So we quickly pivoted our workshops and our reading groups to be online and deliver activity through an initiative we call Website. And so that has been good and it's been well received. But alongside COVID, we've had all the Black Lives Matter protests, and that's been really interesting as organizations, including ourselves, interrogate what we do and who we're for. So I feel that when this is over, institutions are going to be and going to have to be very different. And in terms of Slight Gallery specifically, we've taken on, we've made use of the furlough scheme, benching our staff for a month here and a month there and a bit part-time. Now we're able to do that. And there's incredibly difficult decisions to do that, but we have to protect the nature of our business. And with the closures and with the emergency package that Arts Council England put forward, which is very great, it's a great thing that they did, we are, deeply concerned about the funding landscape in 2021, 2022, 2023 and beyond. And we're, you know, working tirelessly to save as much money as we can, while we obviously want to invest in our staff and our artists that we work with. So, you know, the show that was open in the gallery was called Points of Rupture by an artist called Phoebe Davis, and it was her first solo show. And so that it's closed. But once we're able to reopen, and we're looking at September, I think realistically, we'll be able to reopen with Phoebe. And we're very fortunate that her exhibition is very open. So people will be able to, what's the term now, 1 meter plus within the space. So there'll be plenty of space. And we're looking at ticketing, and we're looking at queuing systems. And we're really interested, shall we say, about how, you know, the social distancing, what effect that will have on the way people experience exhibitions, for example. But it's a really, really strange, scary, but interesting and potentially hopeful time too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting what you're saying about funding. I feel like that's probably on the tip of the tongue, and
sure,
probably, yeah, for everyone in the industry currently. And I feel like as we were kind of going into lockdown, there was a belief at the start of this that sort of larger institutions would kind of be okay, but we'd lose the smaller independent ones. But then you've got high profile organizations like Theatre Royal Plymouth announcing they're unlikely to reopen, and redundancies. Like, what do you think the landscape is going to look like when we come out of this? Like, what in terms of institutions that are able to weather this storm?
Well, I'm really worried for theatres. I'm really worried for revenue-based organisations, but I'm also worried for the organisations who are solely dependent on Arts Council resources. And I feel that it's a fact that some organisations are going to, unfortunately, go under, and it's terrible. But to bring up the Theatre Plymouth example, there was a really great thread of tweets yesterday by somebody who works in the artistic team, who talked about coming from a working class background, who is desperately worried about her chances of getting back into the arts. There are no opportunities for her down there. It's probably going to take a couple of years to get back into the sector, and that's a real concern for me. Is all the people who, you know, the non-white middle class people who are trying to get into the arts, there's going to be just even less opportunity for them. So I think even the larger organizations are going to have to really rethink their programming, their recruitment, their staffing, because post-COVID, people are going to be really, really looking at them and seeing, you know, how are you benefiting your communities?
Yeah, absolutely. And as you say, this time, I think, is a particular opportunity to do that in the face of the social inequalities kind of brought into very sharp relief by COVID-19, as well as the Black Lives Matter movements. So I'm hoping that organisations are now taking that time to reevaluate themselves. And do you think that organisations have the opportunity to do that at the minute, or is it are we still in crisis management?
I think we're still there's a lot of management to be done. There's a lot of logistics to be sorted out. And Site Gallery, I think we're quite small. I guess in Sheffield, we're a medium-sized gallery. There are lots and lots and lots of things that we have to run through. The ordering of Perspex screens, the ordering of vinyls on the floor, the messaging that we have to put out, the briefings to our team, and we're working that all out together. So we're lucky because we're small that we're quite an agile organisation, which is fortuitous. The larger organisation, I absolutely feel that this is the moment. I think there's too many things have converged into one moment, and there has to be a moment where they have a real good look at their programming and their recruitment and their staff and the things that they're saying they're doing, and they have to act on it and change. And I feel that some of those larger organisations that thought they had weathered the COVID storm potentially haven't, with the issues that it's bringing up. And for me, I'm personally I'm not excited. I'm struggling to find the right words for how I feel about it, because obviously I don't want people to lose their jobs and lose their livelihoods. But at the same time, I'm really interested to see how we can make access to culture way more democratic and available to people who think it's not for them.
Yeah. And hopefully this is a time where some great strides will be made in that direction. And I'm thinking about all the things that you do at Site Gallery. I feel like with galleries being able to reopen, there's this idea that when people go to a gallery, it's a very sterile experience. And you go into a big room and you look at something, and then you shuffle along, and then you look at something else. And I could see how opening that kind of gallery makes total sense in the current circumstance. But of course, you do so much more, all of the participation projects, all of the youth work. What are you thinking about the future of those things that people maybe don't see in a gallery?
Yeah, so we have a young people's group. It's called the Society of Explorers, and it's run by our excellent participation manager, Peter Martin. And he has been excellent in bringing the weekly meetings and the activities and workshops and sessions online. That has been really good. We've had really good take up with all the young participants who are part of that program have joined. And additionally, that we've seen people who aren't from Sheffield joined, which is a really interesting experience. And also it kind of, reshapes what it means to be local. Also, when we've got, people from London and people from Doncaster and people from the Shetlands who have like, oh, I saw the link to, this online activity, so I'm going to try it. It doesn't matter that I'm not in Sheffield. So we're really thinking about, okay, post-COVID, when we do come back and we're all able to be physically together, what does that mean for our online offer? And at the same time, we don't want to be too we don't want to make assumptions about people's access to digital. There is just an assumption that you have it, and you have like really stable Wi-Fi, and you have the latest phone, and you're able to take part in Zooms and Google Hangouts. But that's not the case for everybody. So we really have to be mindful of that, and talking to our young people, seeing if we can lend them equipment or give them a boost for their Wi-Fi's, and all that kind of thing comes into it. So while I love to say that, oh yeah, we'll just put everything online, we've solved it, it's not solved. There is still, again, that class gap, between like having access to all this digital technology. So it'd be very foolish of us to just assume that everybody can meet us there.
Yeah, and that's not just in the arts and culture industry either, even just in terms of accessing support from GPs in the Citizens Advice Bureau and things like that. At this time, with everything moving online, it feels like there's a whole group of people that are going to be left behind, and that's a real problem that we have to tackle as a society.
It really is. It really, really is. And one thing I found interesting during this period is the how Arts Council really quickly changed their model and gave money to individual artists to do their projects. And the project, the forms and the process wasn't too onerous, and they were able to access funds quickly. And I think that, if we can do that, why aren't we doing that all the time? Like, why is it so hard? Like, let's be more open and quick to fund and get things moving, and be able to test things and be resourceful and try things. I think that's the most positive aspect, I suppose, of this period has been low expectation on you and the content you deliver, so you can just try things. So that our website program is something that we've had in our minds since I've joined, and probably way before too. But now it's like, right, this is our moment, let's do it, and we did it, and it's good. And is it perfect? No, but we can build on it and continue to build on it.
Yeah, and as you say, if we can do it in a crisis, why can't we do it all the time?
Exactly.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that, Sharna. We will come back to you for the question and answer session. So everybody, we are doing question and answers at the end. You can leave a comment on the YouTube or Facebook videos, and we will come to those. But now we're going to go to Rebecca Walker from the Leadmill. Hi, Rebecca, you there? Hi.
Hi, how you doing?
Good. Thank you. So live music.
Live music. It's not been around for a while.
I know. It's like this thing that's disappeared into the distant past already. Still not an option in person. Obviously, we're seeing an increasing number of artists streaming gigs, but I think we all know that's not the same experience as seeing a gig live. So I was just wondering, well, firstly, what the picture is looking like for you guys at the Leadmill, and also, I guess, what you feel like we're losing by this inability to gather, to kind of experience art together.
Well, the Leadmill, as it stands, is safe for now. We're taking each month by month, and each government announcement by each government announcement. So yeah, as it stands, we are okay for now as long as the furlough scheme is in place. But that only runs up to October, and essentially we don't really know where we're going to take it from October, what the landscape's going to be. But we're trying to be optimistic about it. Really hoping for that cure to happen sometime soon, but it's not looking that likely. But yeah, we miss our customers. We miss our customers. We miss our artists that we have through our doors. And I, for one, miss the staff. It's been so long since I've been able to see them all and put on great events.
Yeah. And in terms of, I don't know if you've had any chance to look at kind of live streamed gigs and that kind of thing, but I guess what do you feel is gained and or lost by taking things online rather than in person?
I think there's definitely a place for the live on streams. We've had a whole host of really successful ones though, actually. We're working in conjunction with the Music Venues Trust, which is a charitable organisation that supports independent grassroots venues across all of the United Kingdom. And we were part of the Save Our Venues campaign. And we had a really successful live stream with Billy Bragg just in May, beginning of May, where we raised just under £20,000 through our crowdfunder through that show, and it was a brilliant live stream. But there is a place for them, but again, they're not, like you said, it's not the same experience of going to a venue with all your friends, really experiencing that music. And you can only really do a live stream once per artist. It's not something that you can't really tour a live stream. I know there has been some venues that are trying to trial that with artists, but it's just a very difficult thing to do. There has been talk in terms of live streaming from the venue itself, but then that throws up a whole host of health and safety and risk assessments that needs to be done. So again, it's just, in my opinion, not viable, not really. I mean, in terms of the fundraising aspect of it, they have been great, and they've been a great resource for getting some cash injection into certain venues. We are very thankful for all the artists that have come forward and helped us and the Save Our Venues campaign. But yeah, there's definitely a time and place for them.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit more about the Save Our Venues campaign.
So it's a very exciting campaign, hashtag Save Our Venues, like I said, in conjunction with the Music Venues Trust. And the Leadmills kind of took its place within that campaign of we are safe for now. We've got a brilliant team that aren't furloughed, that are currently working very hard to make sure the Leadmill continues. But there are a lot of venues within Sheffield, Rotherham, South Yorkshire and the United Kingdom that won't reopen, and the Music Venues Trust is working incredibly hard, lobbying government, lobbying councillors, lobbying the industry. So the music industry is one of the biggest contributors to the national economy, and yet it's the grassroots venues where this whole microcosm is, and that's where it all starts. So we need the big guys up in the top level arenas, the top level recording labels and all those kind of places, and the big promoters to kind of just basically help the smaller venues down the line, because without them you're not going to have the headliners of the stadiums and the Glastonbury festivals in 10 years time.
Yeah, and what is it you think that that those kind of larger institutions, or maybe even central government, could do to better support grassroots venues and individual musicians as well?
In terms of venues, we published an open letter on Tuesday, which was co-signed by over 550 venues to the government, basically asking for two things. One was a cash injection of £50 million. Now, that sounds like a lot of money in the grand scheme of things for the public purse. And I agree, £50 million is a lot of money, but the music industry contributes billions a year to the public purse. So we really do need this cash injection to help get us through just 3 months. So this is only talking about getting us through July to October. That's all that 50 million is going to get us through. But that's the first thing that we're asking government for. The second thing is just a VAT break on tickets, and just to bring us in line to our neighbouring European countries and what they do. But I agree as well, then more needs to be done for artists, for self-employed crew and engineers. I think governments, well, a lot of people in our industry has slipped through the net. A lot of these people work as contractors. They're self-employed part-time, but they're also part-time employed on PAYE schemes. So their income has drastically been cut through this, through the loopholes in terms of the furlough scheme only paying PAYE and not contributing to the certain percentage of their self-employed income.
And is there a way that anybody kind of listening to this right now can get involved and help that campaign? It sounds like you've got some great, like very well set out aims there.
What we are asking the public to do is to write to your local MP, write to your councillors, and basically just keep sharing our open letter. That can be found at pretty much any of your local independent venues' social media. It's on ours. You can go to the Leadmill's Facebook page, and also when we do finally reopen again, which we will, this isn't going to last forever, we just don't know when, just choose where you're going to spend your money and support those local venues, because they really do need your support.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Rebecca. I've just got another question for you, if I may. Obviously, Sheffield is really well known as a music city, with a huge number of like grassroots venues and larger venues, and a huge number of festivals as well. And obviously, even within the music industry, the festival industry is losing effectively an entire season. So in amongst all of this, festivals have effectively lost one whole year. Have you been working with anyone in the festival industry? Are you aware of kind of what's going on in Sheffield?
Sorry, I'm going to come back when then. So repeat the last bit.
How is it going with kind of the festivals that you work with at the Leadmill, and how is the picture looking for them?
Well, we work closely with Tramlines Festival. Everyone in Sheffield knows that festival, and yes, they've had to essentially cancel this year, and now only going to be the next event will be next year. But then the smaller little independent festivals, we were working with Outbreak Festival, which was holding one of their events within our venue. We work with Migration Matters, and again, they've had to postpone for the year. If I'm being honest, we're all in the same boat. The Leadmill's will lose 2 seasons. Our live music season is spring and autumn, and we don't expect to see autumn as well. So the entire music industry is going to lose an entire year, and it's going to be devastating to the industry.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Rebecca. Again, we will come back to you in the question and answer session. If you have any questions for any of our guests or just in general about the arts and culture industry, please do comment on the Facebook live stream or the YouTube video, and we will get to them. But now I'm going to welcome Mojisola. Hi, Moji.
Hi, Sarah.
So, Moji, Utopia Theatre has just announced something very exciting, the Creative Hub Online, which is launching on the 29th of June. Could you please tell us a little bit more about it?
So Utopia Theatre already had plans to have a creative hub that was meant to happen at Sheffield Theatres before COVID-19. And in order to continue to engage with our audiences, we decided to move the Creative Hub online. And basically, it's an opportunity for some of the artists that we already work with, and also some of the artists who work within the African theatre genre to get together and put together the work that they've done, and also just give visibility to that work.
Fantastic. And people can find information about that on your website and log on and sign up to classes and workshops and performances. And I really encourage you to do that. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. And it's going to be running for 6 months.
Yes, that's right. So it starts on the 29th of June and it runs until the end of December. And it's various courses that you can join. And it's all on our website, www.utopiatheatre.co.uk. So you can join as many courses as possible, ranging from playwriting to set design to lighting design, just every single aspect of different aspects of theatre, basically.
Fantastic, absolutely brilliant. So in the meantime, something is slightly less happy. This crisis really has kind of thrown into sharp relief structural inequalities that I think a lot of us obviously knew already were there, in terms of race and wealth and gender and class, and the disproportionate effect that this virus is having, particularly at the intersection of all of those things. And as we kind of touched on earlier with Sharna, it really feels like there's an appetite for change now. And I'm wondering if you as an artist feel that this is something that the artistic community is responding to, and kind of how you see the role of art in that social conversation.
I mean, I think something definitely has shifted in that conversation. Like you said, it's nothing that we're not all aware of in some form or another in terms of this inequality. But then what's changed now is that people now realize the impact of the freelance sector, or even small organizations like Utopia Theatre. What we contribute to this industry is huge, because if we are not there to continue to create work, even big venues like the National Theatre, they would not have the work that is generated in the way that is generated, because artists need to be employed for not just for the one gig at the National Theatre. They have to work all through the year to sustain themselves. And it's through the work that is done by even small organizations like mine that keeps some of these freelancers sustained.
Absolutely. And what do you think the response to that kind of needs to be? Like, do you have an instinct there?
I have an instinct. I do, yes. I think the response has to be that something's got to change. I think a lot's got to change. I think theatre would never be the same as what it was before. I think we've all had the opportunity to reflect on where we were and where we need to be, or where we should have been. And I think a lot of spaces would really need to take some downtime to think about how they want to put themselves forward in the future. And I think Sharna touched on some of that subject matter in terms of how do we connect actually with our community, as in the whole community, not just a section of it. Theatre in particular is predominantly a certain class of people that go into theatre. And despite every avenue that is being made, especially by the Arts Council, to open these spaces up and create change, a lot of these changes have been fought by some of these very big buildings that we refer to as the gatekeepers. And I think we've all realized now that something's got to change, and the programming has got to change. The way that we approach that, the work that we do is got to change, and the way that the relationship that we have with our local communities is got to change. So we can become more London-centric, for example. That's an example of some of the things that happen. We need to now focus on how do we keep the talents that we have locally, how do we keep them local, and how do we sustain those local artists?
Mm-hmm. And in terms of those gatekeepers that you mentioned, that's a term that I feel like we've been using a lot in the arts industry for a really long time, and it would be really lovely to get to the point where all the gates are finally open. And I guess I'm wondering, what do you think are the real barriers to really getting that change coming from those gatekeepers?
I think one of the barriers is, for me, I think first of all, you would need to know that you're doing something. I don't want to use the word wrong. You need to know that you're doing something that is not quite right for you to even be able to fix it. I think some of the problems we have at the moment is the fact that some of the people who have the keys to some of these gates do not even realize how some of the decisions they make, how it affects people on the ground, and how it affects different communities, and how it could also affect different classes of people, or even just different types of people within our community, either because of their disability, or because of their color, or because of just because of anything else, because of their class. So all of these things, I think buildings will need to really take a really good look at themselves and think about ways forward, especially because we're all spending public funds be it that some of them generate a lot of revenue. I think what's also been really good to see is that for once, the balance of power is shifted somehow, where you're now in a room with people that you would send 200 emails to and not get a response. So that balance of power is shifted as well. And I think that in itself, I hope, would lead to a different landscape for theatre.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder if we're even seeing that kind of shift in power and landscape outside of theatre and even outside of arts and culture, and kind of looking at society more generally and calls for change across the board. And I really feel that arts and culture, obviously I work there, has a role to play in shaping that conversation and imagining kind of change to society. And I was just wondering if that is the kind of thing that might influence artists that you work with, and if you're seeing artists respond to that.
Yes, definitely. I mean, a lot of artists are now thinking about what is the future. Instead of, I mean, some of the conversations that I've been having with people is, instead of spending so much energy around what is actually happening with gatekeepers, how about we come together as small groups and organizations and start creating our own spaces where we can create work. So even in that respect even in that just small respect, a lot is going to change in the future in terms of what the landscape will probably look like.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're kind of widening things out a little bit now. So I'm going to see if Sharna wants to come back and join us.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I completely agree with everything Mojisola was saying. And to that question about specific opportunities and for artists and arts organisations, I think at the start of COVID, there were very specific, kind of coping in lockdown, kind of twee-ish, kind of banana bread making kind of opportunities where it's like, what are you going to do at home? And it's like, now it's become way more critical about organizations, and exactly what you're saying, Mojisola, about the keys. And I think some organizations are quite afraid to hand over those keys because I don't want to be too dramatic and say, it's a reckoning, but I can feel a palpable change in the way artists and smaller organizations are thinking and realizing their importance. And this kind of there seems like to be some kind of I can't even speak, but a kind of distancing away from the London-centric kind of, we must go to London, I must get approval from London. It's like, no, okay, what can we do together? Well, how can we work as collectives to really make a change? And some of the artists we're working with have really, had used this time to really reflect on who they are as artists and what they want to do and who they're about. And I think that's a kind of a process a lot of us have been going through, whether we're artists or not, really thinking about, okay, I've been working in a different environment. I've been at home. I don't want to go back to work in the same way. I don't want to sit at a desk for 40 hours a week. So who am I and what am I going to do? And what role do I want to play in this?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's wrong to use the word reckoning, actually. I feel like we're due for a bit of a reckoning, and it would probably be a good thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting to me what you're saying about the kind of personal reckoning as well, that I think a lot of people have felt in self-examination during lockdown. And I'm just wondering, Rebecca, have you, in dealing with the musicians and the artists that you work with, have you felt that kind of need for change coming through?
I'm really sorry, I didn't hear what Sharna was saying.
We were talking about the kind of need for change that seems to be quite prevalent at the moment, and people campaigning for change, not just in the arts, but across the board, and how this feels like it could be a catalyst for something really positive.
At the Leadmill, we've been trying to, well, not trying, but I would always say that the Leadmill has always been at the forefront of trying to combat, trying to be part of the change. The Leadmill hires, well, coincidentally, the majority of our staff at the Leadmill, especially senior management, are all female. So we have a very female-heavy workforce, which we're incredibly proud of. We try and we try and book as many varied different genres of art forms as possible, whether it's indie music, which is 5 guys, a guitar, drums, bass, and a singer, to we're going all the way into grime and hip hop and things like that, trying to keep the music as varied as possible to engage as many different audiences as possible. We're working we've just began working with Ticket Bank to try and engage and get as many people from the outer areas of Sheffield who are not necessarily able to come within the city, and they're not able to access art forms as readily as a lot of people, and allowing them to access our events as part of the Ticket Bank charity scheme, which has been really successful as well. And we're hoping to kind of embrace that a lot more and kind of expand that going forward.
Yeah, I think that the Leadmill do a really great job with their programming, and I feel that with music seems to me to be the most accessible form of arts engagement. And so you can really, when I talk to people who don't want to come to the gallery, they're like, well, it's a white box and it's really posh and I'm going to feel silly going there. And I'm trying to break those boundaries down. I think what the Leadmill do is really great, is that, you know, they program really widely, so it's more accessible. And I think lots of arts organisations, when I say arts, I mean like more galleries and museums, have to take the approach of a music venue and program more diverse like they do. I agree.
Fantastic. So we've got some questions coming in from the audience. So Sean Ellis has said, I'd be interested to hear what proportion the panel thinks are new issues due to COVID and lockdown, and what are issues that have existed for a while that aren't new but are magnified by the current climate. So I think I'm just going to point at Sharna maybe to start off on that one.
Okay, yeah, I think these are issues that have always existed, but now they've been exacerbated. They've been exacerbated by the situation, and I feel that people are realizing, like, hang on, like people are just having the time to question things more, and not just fall into similar patterns and ways. So I think it's problems that have always existed, and yeah, it's just shone a magnifying glass on them, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much what I think as well. It's been a magnifying glass on already prevalent issues. Moji or Rebecca, did you have anything to add to that?
I mean, just to say that I think it's also because immediately after the lockdown, I think a lot of people have had time to really reflect. I think the hustle and bustle of just getting up every morning and going for your 9 o'clock, I need to be at work, and then I need to get back home and dealing with your life. I think that in itself puts us in a cycle. I think just breaking out of that cycle in itself gives you an opportunity to really think about all of the things that have already been there. And like you said, just kind of just magnify them just much more for you to, and then with the events that happened around Black Lives Matter, that only even kind of just increased a lot of thinking around some of the issues that have already been there.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think what I would add is the things that have been highlighted within the Leadmill and in the live music sector is just the disproportion in terms of people who are self-employed. Artists, live music isn't always their main income, so a lot of them have to rely on part-time work, and a lot of people now are relying on essentially food banks and handouts to get by, because they have just lost their main source of income, and possibly for an entire year. A lot of events, we might be able to put events back on November, December, January time, but a lot of the Leadmill's events have been now rescheduled into February onwards next year. So a lot of these artists, and then the crew and the engineers that go around with them, have lost an entire year's income.
Yeah, and of course, there's no guarantee, as you say, even if we are able to put on events in November, there's no guarantee how audiences will feel about coming to those events in terms of kind of confidence.
Precisely, yeah,
Okay, so we've got another audience question, which doesn't have a name on my feed, but I'm gonna send this one to Moji because you brought up the gatekeepers, Moji, and the question is, who are the gatekeepers, and what do they have that you need?
Well, not that I need, but yeah, not that I need, yeah, but I know a lot of people need it. The gatekeepers are people who receive a higher proportion of income from the Arts Council and the government in terms of arts and culture, and maybe even from the local authority. And for that reason, they're able to have resources that a lot of smaller organizations aren't able to have access to. For that reason, a number of people feel that their work can only be validated if they have the opportunity to be in those buildings. So those are the people that I refer to as gatekeepers.
I can concur with that one. Just kind of echoing that in terms of people who receive funding, grassroots venues. We just had a win with the Arts Council, where a ring-fenced amount of money was made available each year for 2 years to independent grassroots venues to essentially gain money for infrastructure, which is what we need. We don't need money for events. We know how to put events on that make money. And then as soon as this happened, the funding was completely pulled, and we don't know when that will be coming back out again. But yeah, I can definitely echo that. There's a lot of people out there that have access to a lot of money in terms of Arts Council, and they are very big organisations, but there are a lot of smaller independent promoters and venues out there that are desperate for some of that money, but it's not very accessible.
Yeah, and I think that's the problem, isn't it? With oh god, so the Arts Council fund site galleries significantly, and I really respect Arts Council. I like them a lot, clearly. But you see some of the forms for artists that they to access funds, and it's just really difficult. They're just unnecessarily difficult. And like I was saying to you, Sarah, in our little talk about how quickly funds have been unlocked during COVID, I'd like to see more of that. You need to like share the wealth, and if you have a building and a platform like we do at site, you have to be sharing it and offering up to people. You can't hold it to yourself. What for who? Like, why would you want to hold that power? It should be a platform for everybody in the community within the frameworks that we work. It's like, come on through, get through. And the point for me, like working at site, me being the director, that's what we're there for. That's the remit. It's like, you can come in, you can feel comfortable, you can talk to us, we can support you in developing the kind of work you want to make, and get it out there. We have we have no desire to be like, oh, site galleries, we're so great. We're like a London outpost of Tate. Like, that is just not our vibe. So I'm really welcoming some of this change and some of these demands that the younger, braver people are making.
Yeah. That actually really nicely takes us on to the next question that we have from the audience, which is, do panelists feel the Arts Council should take a more deliberate and political stance on the social issues discussed tonight in order to catalyse change faster? Yes. That was my answer as well. Well, from my point of view at Theatre Deli, and I'm a trustee of Migration Matters Festival as well, and we feel very strongly that organisations, it's not enough to simply not be racist. You must be actively anti-racist, and you must look at how you're doing that and ask yourself those really uncomfortable questions, because that's where it starts. But who wants to jump in?
I'll jump in. So we at Site Gallery, we recently put out our Black Lives Matter statement, and it's been quite interesting. It's just in the response to it, because it started off like, if you're anti-racist, don't come back to the gallery, don't look at our tweets, don't follow us, just buy. And we had lots of other organisations following us saying, oh wow, you're so brave, and it's like, not really. Like, you have to be like, you cannot be racist. Don't be racist, be anti-racist, and you have to walk that talk. Like, what are you afraid of? And yeah, I'm like one of the few Black female directors of galleries in the country, but our statement was put together with the entire team, with their input, and it's a burden that a burden is the wrong word, but it's something that we all share. It's not, you know, I'm not the face of Site Gallery Black Lives Matter. It's not for me to take on that labor for the entire gallery, and they don't want me to do that either. So we get loads of it. Like this week is just full of requests. Oh, do you want to talk about Black Lives Matter? And it's like, no, any one of us can talk about Black Lives Matter, because it's not a controversial topic for us. And for those organizations who keep coming to me and asking me, oh, your statement was so bold and it was so brave. It's not really. You just got to say things with your chest and then follow through. And it's easy to say these things, but then what are you going to do about it? How do we get people? How do we get Black, brown, LGBTQI+, working class people into our spaces, and make them, not only bring them into our spaces, but make them feel comfortable and welcome and part of the community? It's just like, we have to do it. We have to do it. And to the question about the Arts Council, that's the kind of thing the Arts Council should be looking at. They should be looking at the regions and thinking, okay, what's the demographics here? How do we bring people into these spaces, rather than funding things that are like, you know, things that celebrate galleries going into, you went into a community as if we were like some Christian missionaries and we spread the good word of arts and culture. It's like, no, we want to do meaningful engagement, long-term relationship with members of our community for the benefit of everybody in our community. We're not interested in doing like tokenistic projects with people and then just leave them hanging after 3 months. Like, what is the point in that? Sorry, I'm really ranty. Like,
it was a good rant. It was a good rant. I loved it. And yeah, I agree with absolutely everything you said. And I think as well that there has to be a step beyond simply welcoming people into our spaces, but actually transferring ownership and power over those spaces, because that's something that can't continue to be held where it is. Rebecca, you look like you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I just love every word like you just said, Sharna. That was incredible. I think at the Leadmill, we're just trying to diversify our program constantly. We're always reviewing what's coming out there, what's going on, and trying to be as diverse as possible. I mean, LGBTQ plus, we're working really hard on that. We just launched our first LGBTQ plus club night, and we're working really hard with that kind of area of entertainment. And we've got a great person within our team who is spearheading that, and they're doing an incredible job on that. And in terms of the Black Lives Matter movement, the Leadmill is 100% behind it. And we are asking ourselves those difficult questions as a company, and we are looking at ourselves and analysing ourselves. And we can always do better, and we strive to do better. Our programming can be quite white, but that's just the nature of a lot of music that's coming out. So I guess with that, it's making sure we're supporting those up and coming artists of all backgrounds, and making sure that they have a platform, especially people from the BAME community, and making sure there is a place for them on our stage and behind the scenes on our stage, in terms of engineering and in terms of promoting and marketing, and giving everyone an opportunity to access all areas of the arts within live music.
Mm-hmm.
Moji, did you want to come in on this?
Well, yes, yeah. I mean, I've been kind of baffled by how everybody seems to be kind of jumping over themselves in thinking that just making a statement is the be it and end all of everything. Because at the end of the day, none of these problems are new in terms of representation. And personally, I feel that the effect of COVID and the lockdown in itself is likely to lead to less representation within the industry. And I'm hoping that as a result of the magnifying glass that's been put on some of these issues, that people will realize that it's about representing those people that look like they're a representation of the people that are within our community. It's not about, like Sharna mentioned, it's not about that tokenistic attitude, because that is not what is going to resolve the issue.
Yep. So kind of leading on from that, we've got another question, which is, what would Sharna and Mojisola expect from your white colleagues? And that aside, what tasks Sara and Rebecca see themselves undertaking in being actively anti-racist and exercising allyship of the highest standard?
Okay. I expect all my colleagues to be anti-racist and to actively want to not be a racist space. I'm not asking for anything controversial. And I think, well, you would say that, oh, you know, we work in the arts, it's really liberal, but it's not really. It's not all the time. And the colleagues who I work with at site are mostly white, and they have been they're all on it. And they're just, you know, wanting to read the statement, do the work, not for me to carry the labor of all of this. They recognize that this is my everyday life and I'm exhausted of it. I'm exhausted talking about it. So my team and I work as a real good team. We're a really good team, and we share the burden, and we're working on it together and constantly coming up with ways that we can continue to make our program better. Because yeah, we do the work, but it's you know, it's not enough. There are definitely ways that we can improve, and yeah, we work together to do that.
Great. And Moji, do you want to come in on that?
Yes, I mean, I expect all my colleagues to see me as another human being and not see me for the color of my skin. I expect them to treat everyone just the same way that they would want to be treated. I expect not to be asked questions about anything that is just solely for their focus of attention not to be to approach me just solely about something that is related to me being a person that the color is black. So if you're going to approach a white colleague to do something, then I feel like I should be approached in exactly the same way. And I expect people to just treat me because of the merit of who I am, not necessarily because of the color of my skin.
And the second part of that question then was, what tasks Sara and Rebecca see themselves undertaking in being actively anti-racist and exercising allyship of the highest standard? Do you want to jump in, Rebecca?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we had this conversation not long before, but before COVID, about how we can diversify our program as much as possible, and we have looked at the genres that we are booking in within our venue, and we also program events around the city in smaller venues as well. And it's just been very mindful of the artists that we're booking in, and the genres that they come with it. I mean, it's very easy to just program a program full of indie rock and alternative music, because that's a lot of what our client base, our audiences kind of expect from us. But for us, it's about stepping out of that boundary and looking at the genres that people aren't looking within our city, and which are kind of being pushed a bit further underground. Genres like grime, where there's a lot of venues that kind of steer away from it because they consider it to be a bit difficult to manage. And it's like, well, why is it difficult to manage? And when we opened our doors up and opened up our diaries to start booking things like that, it's not difficult at all. It's just engaging with those communities and giving them a safe space to come and experience that art form, where their parents know that they're going to be safe. So a lot of the audiences for this kind of music is a lot younger, so it's knowing that they're in a safe space and they're able to enjoy it in a very safe environment. But yeah, it's constantly just reviewing our program and making sure we're not falling into that trap of booking what's easy, but also looking about booking what is varied. And just because our audience base isn't in a students' hall across the road, looking to see what audiences are out there that we can bring into the city from the working class communities a bit further afield, looking at the communities from the Black and ethnic minority groups and what kind of music forms that they're wanting to look at, and just opening up our diaries and our boundaries with that.
Great, and I guess I have to answer that question as well. So at Theatre Deli, I try very hard to program artists from a range of backgrounds. Last year, we initiated our guest curator program, which has been put on hold for this year. But last year, we had 2 guest curators who were John Roth-Omack and Louise Orwin. So we had a representative from an ethnicity that was not white, so not my face. And we had someone from the queer community as well that I could give my programming gatekeeping effectively power to, which I think was a fantastic program, but it's definitely just a start and nowhere close to an end. There's lots more work that we can do. And I'm very keenly aware of making sure that work is my work. and not putting labour of that onto people who are already being oppressed by this horrific system that we have found ourselves in. So I think that in terms of exercising allyship, which was part of the question, that idea of taking the work and examining is one that I'm really trying to work on currently, and looking at biases that people don't even realise they have, because racism, sexism, homophobia, they're unfortunately like oxygen, and we're all exposed to them from the second that we're born. And to think that that doesn't have an effect on you, regardless of who you are, is just nonsensical. So examining that effect, I think, is where I'm at currently. And that has taken us to just about the end of our question and answer session. So I just want to say thank you so much to our guests tonight. You've all been absolutely fabulous. And I do encourage you to look them all up. Look them all up on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, and all of the social medias. Check out their websites, follow them, share them, support them, platform them. It's the very least you can do when you're sitting around on lockdown on your phone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. This is the Festival of Debate. All the events are free. You can donate at the PayPal, which is in the video descriptions on both YouTube and Facebook. We'll be back with some more events next week. You can find all of the events archived online at the YouTube channel, and you can also find them on the Festival of Debate website. If you did join us tonight in this incredibly sunny day, I just want to say an extra special thank you. This has been a great discussion, and I think we've brought out a lot of threads that I really hope that people continue to look at, to do the work for, to research, and I hope that you will join us again for another Festival of Debate event. Thank you.